Next thing I know, he's my imaging and production guy for all 4 of my stations, and he's doing it in his pajamas in his house. He doesn't have to be, obviously on site with us, and that was the hire of the year. Another guy, laid off by WSB doing traffic. They cut way back on their traffic, I guess, when they changed ownership. And all of a sudden, here's a 20-year veteran, who's willing to move to Clarksville and buy a home and, be part of the community. And, that's terrific. So, I think that the people that we're looking for are right under our noses in a lot of ways, and I think that's funny what the gentleman says about servers, and you're right, it is funny how we will run into people in our daily lives, and you do kind of turn your head for a second, like, wow, that's a pair of pipes right there. I haven't been that lucky, but if you put an ad on allaccess.com, you will get resumes, and you'll get good people. Now, whether or not they want to move from Des Moines to North Georgia is another question, but if you're looking for voiceover people, or you're looking for virtual news people, Bill, I think in your situation, I know that a person in Iowa can't cover
Right.
Gainesville City Council, but they could sure as heck, take a script and cut something beautiful and get it back to you with the way technology is. So I think we continue to be the beneficiaries of debt service, at Cumulus and all the big companies where they're just slashing people because they have to.
Yeah, you found a big gun too, in Christopher Root.
And there you go. So he's laid off at 680 the fan after 1 million years, and he is at an age where he can't quite retire. And next thing you know, I've got one of the 5 or 10 best morning personalities of the last generation working for me.
Yeah.
Everybody comes up to me, how did you get that guy? How did that happen?
Yeah.
But these people are there. We've all been through the Moby in the morning experience. I think all of us have been through that at least one time, but there are, there are a lot of Mobies. I was kind of halfway looking at you when I said that, but I know that he's been with most of us once or twice, but they're not him specifically, but there are people like that are legendary names with all kinds of name equity that we could take advantage of.
Raul's got to go, but I want you to comment some on, because you just came from a small group, and now you're WABE, but just from a news standpoint, you had to cover a lot of ground. Talk about the challenges there, and who, when you leave there, what do they do? What do they do now? Because you left the big void.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I was at Oconee Radio Group, Greensboro, Milledgeville, Eatonton. I was working for KJ out at Oconee Radio Group, and I was doing the news there for multiple stations. I think the 2 things I could tell people is I didn't get out to cover many stories. I went back to what I did in the 90s, pick up the phone and call people, call the sheriff, call the police chief, anything going on. That's where I got a lot of those stories, because all the papers in the area were one day or just weekly, so I couldn't really tap the newspapers. In terms of who replaced me, I think the suggestion I've made, if you're looking for news people, the places you can go, the person that they got to replace me, they tapped from the press corps at the state capitol. Because he was just a student journalist from Georgia College in Milledgeville. There are so many freelance news groups now. Society of Professional Journalists has a freelance group on Facebook. Asian Journalist has a group on Facebook just looking for freelancers. If they're looking for news people, they found me because I got let go by Cumulus. That's how they found me. But I would start tapping the Facebook groups, because there are so many freelancers out there. And then for those of you who have or haven't heard, there's a big voiceover conference that happens once a year. You may know about. It's called VO Atlanta. Is that what it's called?
There's several people that do. There are a lot of. If you want people to read and voice stuff, there are several.
I went to that once, and I was stunned how much talent was there. I was like, wow, it would be worth your money just to pay even a day would pass for that. But in terms of what I did, if a news person is willing just to make the phone calls, because I anchored from home, but vast majority of my news was from phone calls, so I could stay home, take care of the kids, and just make calls during the day. And then just put together the newscast for the multiple stations. And then I will look to the Facebook groups. There are so many, and those are becoming richer and richer, the number of people who are on those groups. And as John said, I'm sorry, I got to moderate.
Yeah, he's got to moderate
Georgia
Talent
Tech,
Tech.
so, but I'm going to be back later today.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Well, do you anchor what you do at WABE from home?
Well, I'm now the political reporter, so I'm filing for the field. So, I mean, yesterday I filed for the Commerce Club, so everything there is going to be in the field. As a reporter, I'm rarely ever going to be in the studio.
Got it. And I want to get you to comment on, we're talking about finding talent. And you guys down on the coast, stations, how do you find good young talent to come up and keep the good young talent?
Funny you should do
Oh, okay, perfect time. The mic goes to you.
Well, hello, my name is Mark Edis. I'm the program director of 3 stations in Golden Isles Broadcasting, Brunswick, and we're right around the corner from St. Simon's Island. Really terrible place to live.
Yeah.
As far as talent, we're in a market where it's us and the other guys. That's what I'm going to call them, the other guys. And we're in the position where if somebody, we're actually discussing something right now where a young lady was released from another company, and we're in the position to be able to poach her. And it's pretty amazing that if you just look where you're at, if you just look under your own nose, you find talent that was, I hate to use the word cast away, but more or less cast away, and then we reap the benefits of that. And they're, again, right in your own backyard. So if you're ever looking for talent, you don't have to look very far all the time. We're a staff of, we're very, very small staff, but very mighty. We've got people who have been in the radio business, for a long time, but have the same passion of when they first started, and you don't find that a bunch. But talent, to me, talent you'll find, but you might not find the best person in that talent. And I fill my building with people that love what they do and respect the other people in the building. Finding good people is just as important to me as a talent. And in regards to the lady we're talking about now, she lives what she does. She was, she's a lifer in radio, and we're gonna, hopefully be able to give her another start and let her continue what she's doing. But yeah, as far as, you find talent in the strangest places, and all the time. It doesn't have to be a far search. It could be right on your nose. And so we're lucky that in the Golden Isles we've had really good success so far, and just getting people that love what they do. They love being around the people in the building, and that you don't find that everywhere. So yeah, find people and nurture them. This business doesn't do that enough.
Right. That's
So
right.
that's what I would say about that.
I like your idea, Howard, about sharing people. I think it's a great idea. If people are willing to. That's something GAB could probably be instrumental.
Well, again, I think they would be, if people are willing, the people in the room are willing to share their people with the expectation that this is something they do kind of on their own time. It's not going to interfere with anything else that they have to do. And it's kind of like, you just kind of put them up. These people are available. Figure out what you want or what they're going to want. To be able to pick up a voice track, most of these people can do. If you provide them the content, you give them the access to the content and that stuff, they can make a show out pretty, in a fairly short period of time. But everybody in here has probably 1 or 2 people who would like to make some extra money. I mean, well, all of us have people, all of us. Man, I might pick up a shift,
Yeah. I may do it. I may do it for you. Just send me the script.
Yeah, but I think if we could wind up putting up a pool together and people are willing to do it, and it doesn't take any time away, and just figure out how to be able to interface, because you want something that's going to be good. We do have people send stuff to us on voice tracks on email, because our system they can't go directly into, and everybody's system may not be compatible, but you've got Comrex, you've got timelines, and there's just so many ways to be able to do that. And, Might be giving them an opportunity to pick up another 100 a week, 200 a week, 50, whatever it is, whatever you negotiate, whatever they do.
And the people, you know, in Rome, you wouldn't, like, you know, down on the Golden Isles, it wouldn't be, hey, that's that guy, you know. The competition part's kind of, you know, your guy, you know, it'd be a whole new person, your audience, and it would be.
Yeah, it's just kind of like on one of our stations, we've got a syndicated morning show, and this is our largest station. But then it's voice tracked out of Valdosta middays.
Yeah.
I have a live person in the afternoon. There's a female that voice tracks out of Huntsville at night. I mean, and you would never know that those people weren't there. Even when we do contests, there's a way that we've already set it up that we give away tickets. There's a kind of a script that we go into that they already do. The person on the other end of the phone's answering that. We'll go through and do all the stuff together. You quickly put it together in audition, play it back, sounds like it's right there.
Yeah.
So people aren't any wiser to that. Yeah. Key is finding the right people, and I think you said it, passion. People who have a passion for it. I think one of the bigger challenges is trying to find salespeople, and
That was my next, I was going to dovetail into that. Sorry.
all of us are in smaller markets, and one of the things, well, most of us are, and I will tell you this, Rome Chamber of Commerce has done some incredible stuff, and there are a couple of colleges that have done some incredible pieces, and trying to get people to come to a smaller area. If you've got something to sell, if the chamber or those things, people have got something to sell, and they can show you that this is a pretty vibrant place, you stand a lot better chance of at least attracting the people, getting their attention. Because if they're coming out of Atlanta, or they're coming out of, you know, Charleston or someplace, they're gonna look down their nose at a smaller market. Okay? So just my thought.
Yeah. Anybody else on the sales side of the building? Oh yeah. Anybody else? Guys? Yeah. I remember.
We have a rather interesting staff in our radio station. I do not have a full-time salesperson that's dedicated to sales.
Yeah.
My top seller is Joe Willie Souza, who does the morning show on our country station. I have two other sellers that are sort of competing with each other for the second position now. One is Robin Souza, who is part of the morning show on our country station. The other one is Mark Edis, who's our program director and does mornings on our classic hits station. And I've given everybody, all of my air staff, from my operations manager, I'll even work with my business manager, the opportunity to go out and sell. I'll train them to sell. Right? And it makes them a whole lot more money than if in fact they were voice tracking for another radio station.
Right. Mark, how does that work for you then? Being a PD and doing that? It's a unique position though, you know radio
He's
station.
won a stiff car so far this year.
Oh, wow.
No, the funny thing is, sorry, that's loud. The funny thing is, I didn't do a whole lot of selling up until coming to Golden Isles Broadcasting. I was a little intimidated by that. But as you mentioned, programming the radio stations, it's really easy for me to go to a client, ask for X amount of dollars, knowing the product I'm selling to them. Feel good about the way the radio stations sound. Obviously, if you're passionate about how your product sounds, you're gonna be more in tune to go to the client and be like, listen, this is what you're getting, and it's worth every penny. You're gonna write a check for me today. You know, Ira will tell the story later probably, but every time we go to lunch, I leave for at least 10 minutes because I'm trying to sell the person where I like. It's my belief that.
There he goes again.
Yeah. So like the worst somebody can say is no.
Yeah.
But if they don't know what I'm offering or who we are or what we're doing, they're not gonna just volunteer to write a check or advertise. So it's kind of become. I love it. It's such a rush to me to go into a business, and I've also made it a point to, and everybody heard about spec spots.
Okay.
When I'm pitching a potential new client, I'll write and produce a spot about their business and be able to play it for them when I'm pitching them a deal, because if they hear what their commercial is going to sound like, as opposed to well, here's what it can turn into, or you can put whatever. If I'm playing them a piece of audio that says, their business, and it gets them a little more excited about, this is going to be kind of, and let's be honest, a lot of business owners love to hear themselves on the radio. They love to hear their business being talked about. And so if I have a 30-second spec spot to play them when I'm going in to say, here's what we can do and here's what it's going to cost you, I've made like so many of my deals that way where I'm already showing them what they're going to hear, let them listen to what they're going to hear, and that's made a difference. Ira's right though. I mean, all they can say is no. All they can say is no. And most of the time, the relationships I've made with some businesses since I've been there, I've been in Golden Isles since April of 19. It's been amazing how far, the radio stations have come with the people that we've been able to integrate in and been a part of our group. And what we tell everybody is we're not just, I don't ever want just a one and done client. I want to build a relationship over time. If they feel like you're just coming in to get a check, they're not going to have any interest in talking to you. Most people want a relationship. They want to know that you're going to be there with me a year down the road if we're in trouble, like, perfect time in COVID.
Right.
We've had clients that were really big clients, COVID hit, had a little bit of a downfall with their business, and they still come back to us because they know we have their best interests at heart. We want to help them grow back to where they were pre-pandemic. So selling to me has been a blessing added to my duties, and I've really come to love doing it.
That's interesting. You've crossed the aisle. Because for how much, for years and years, it's like programming, sales, so that's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I always hated that sales. I was on the programming side. So you've truly crossed the aisle now.
I used to, and cold calling, I was never a huge fan of that, but I'll find myself, if I drive by a business, I'll get to the station, I'll start doing my show, and I'll call, like, listen, do you have any information, do you have any interest in, and again, they'll either be real blunt with you and say, no, we're not doing anything at this time, or they'll at least let me have dialogue with them. And once you get to that point, you're kind of in the door, you're kind of leading the conversation. But it really has been a blessing. I didn't know a lot about, I didn't know how good I would be at it, or I didn't know how, and I'm still learning every single day from this guy.
Yeah.
He's incredible to learn from. But it really is, it's really an added benefit to what I do. I get to go in and really sell my radio stations to people that I'm so passionate about. So it's a lot of fun to me too.
It's one of the best parts of being in small market radio.
Yeah.
Okay, there's two businesses of radio. Now there's the transactional business of radio, and there's a relationship business of radio. And in markets like ours, the only thing that really works is the relationship business of radio.
Yeah.
And when you build that relationship, people have no problem in giving you cash, giving you money, because they know that you've got their success in mind, right? And we're in a situation where 95% or more of our revenue is local business, right? And 90% of those people continuously spend money with us, right? And we're up against the evil empire. Right?
Which
they business completely different.
Oh, sure.
They don't care what really goes on locally until they hear something on our radio station.
Yeah.
And then they go after it. Okay? But people like Mark, between Mark and Joe Willie and Robin and Paulie, who all just started with us.
It's all hands on deck.
Everybody in the building is salespeople.
Excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting, but this is Amanda Bright, Dr. Amanda Bright. She has a session coming up for the news directors here in about a half hour. And we were just listening, and one of the things that she's going to talk about is the program that they have here that I think you all need to hear a little bit about. Many of you have heard me preach on this already, and some of you, like Bill, are doing a great job with your digital presence. Others have chosen not to get involved at all. She's got a service that they're starting to start. I just wanted to have her take maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So she's going
Is
to
that
talk.
right?
Sure. Yeah. That was one of the things I wanted to help. So it's a digital.
The question that we are all interested in is to make us money.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bury the lead. This is a free program to you. We pay the students, we put them up, so it is at no cost to your station or your organization. And will it make you money in the long term? I believe yes. Do I think I can draw a straight ROI line for you? Digital's not like that. It's a little bit different, so I want to be honest about that. So I run Grady News Source, if you're familiar with the University of Georgia and our news broadcasts. So I don't do the broadcast side as much as on the digital platform. So we have 8 digital products now that I'm managing, about 100 editorial staff across our capstones. So we do a lot of content. And this program is in its 2nd year. And it's funded by Grady, Georgia Press Association, and some really lovely donors. It's called Digital Natives. And the idea is that news organizations just in Georgia apply, students who are very digitally savvy in our journalism program apply, and then we match you up to help you achieve a specific digital goal for your newsroom for 1 week in January. So it's very limited and specific and focused. So let's say you want to launch an email newsletter. Let's say you want to work inside Facebook groups to get more engagement on your content, right? Share things. Let's say you want to start a YouTube channel. Let's say you want to expand your reach using another digital tool, or maybe ramp up your website, or right, or like do some more graphic presentations that go along with your audio. What's really important is that we do whatever you want to do, if that makes sense. So the students do a lot of market research starting in November, but then they come to you and say, okay, so what's the 1 or 2 things that you would like to do digitally? And then they work on a training plan. They come to your place from January 3rd through 7th, technically slow news time, but last year we had like runoffs times 7,000, so much more, but hopefully this time. And they will spend the week with you in your newsroom and train your staff to work on, create a plan, execute, build that whatever digital thing you would like to have for your newsroom. So we pay the students $1,000 for that work, and then we pay hotel, transportation, room, and board and food for them.
So is it just focused on news, or can we get them to work in other digital aspects?
That's a great question. And we had some, especially some of our newspaper clients from last semester, they were like, hey, can we do some marketing? Hey, can we do some crossover ad stuff? We tend to pull from a journalism student pool. However, if you list your needs as a certain thing, it's not like, great, we haven't had a PR program, it's fabulous too, right? So we can try to work on the things that you want to work on. Also, a lot of our news journalism students tend to have interests in lots of areas, right? So I think we can probably build a plan that would work for you. The key is for it to be narrow and specific, so they actually accomplish something. They're not coming in and reporting. They're not a typical intern where you have to like find something for them to do, right? It's, you want this achieved, they're gonna help you build it and achieve it. And the cool thing about the program, at least the way we're gonna run it, is that we can come back every year. So we want to build relationships with Georgia news organizations, not just like a one-hit kind of, we swoop in and build you something and then leave. So in fact, we've got a bunch of applicants already who were in the program last year, and they reapplied this year, and we're going to send a new digital native to them to basically go, okay, so how's that going? What do you want to do next? How could we improve it? Should we circle back and retrain you because it's been a year?
Yeah.
So if
Makes
these
sense.
people are good, let's say that they
Yeah.
like what they do, are they available to continue to do stuff for us?
So, off the record,
Stop the tape.
right?
Yeah.
We have lots of avenues with which internships could grow out of, right? And avenues and way we could like partner more long term. Right now, this is kind of a short-term externship kind of program, but trust me, Grady is full of really ingenious humans who can figure out ways that if you want to build a relationship with the student over the long term, whether it's an internship, hiring, whatever it is, I'm sure we can find a path.
Now, are you assigned, you're assigned particular student for your, but they're working for other, they don't,
No, they're only for you.
They're only working for your student?
Yeah, one student to one news organization.
Wow. Okay.
And for you, there are yours. In fact, the first thing they have them do is a community audit. They find out everything they can about your market and your community. They research like crazy. And then they talk to you and see what you want, and then they craft a plan, you approve it, and then they come and implement it that week in January. So I pick students who can do the things you want to accomplish. So if you give me 2 or 3 things you would like to do, I'll be like, okay, I know who would be great at this, right? And pull that student into that slot for you.
And then when they graduate, you're assign a new person?
Correct. Yeah, so in some of my students, so we have 15 slots. We had 8 last year, but we had some really generous donor funding, so we've expanded to 15. We already have 8 applications in from news organizations, which is great because the deadline's still a week and a half away, or a week away. It's October 29th. I don't know that the students would come back because, you know, our journalism program's only 2 years. There's not a lot of, but it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
So these people are waking up in a hotel in our town 6 straight days? That kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess you could match some up, like if you had somebody, you know, from Rome, who's born and raised in Rome, would you try to do that if possible? And
Yeah.
This is your hometown, you know it well.
I will tell you there are 2 student applicant digital natives right now that really want to work with their local news organizations because they love them, they're passionate about it, right? They understand the community at a different level.
Do you remember the names of the towns?
The Dallas New Era is the newspaper in one of them. Where is that at? Somewhere near Cobb?
Dallas, Georgia, Dallas, Georgia.
What it?
Paulding? Dallas.
Oh, maybe Paulding.
Paulding, yeah.
So I'm from Illinois originally. This is my 4th year in Georgia. I'm still working on these counties people. There's a lot of them. You guys are joking here with your number of counties.
Oh, yeah, we know.
And I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. But what would make me happy is to try to create those kind of matchups, right? A student who's from that area or is familiar with that region. I think I take all those things into consideration when I make the pairs in addition to the digital skill set.
So you don't have any radio right now?
No, we haven't, but I don't want that to stay that way.
Oh,
I
no,
want
I
to
think
have
it's great.
radio and TV
Yeah.
and newspapers and digital-only organizations. I think we can help everybody.
I think the students that I've seen on the TV side, their sizzle reels are incredible.
Thank you very much. We work hard.
Now, I mean, really, some of the candidates excel.
Well, and we're really kind of, y'all are the radio folk, yeah?
Yeah.
So we're diving a little more into audio too. We're building a podcasting studio right now. And we have a podcasting dedicated class right now that's really kind of working on some of those specific skills. And obviously we do a lot of that in our broadcast as well. And also we have a kind of a new vision for our capstone class where we're doing a lot of multi-platform audio-driven reporting. Inline audio, we can teach you how to do that, how to embed audio inside the text. So that as someone is reading, they can hit play and actually hear the voice speaking. If you have like a web version of your article, of your audio piece. So yeah, we're really interested in pushing into this area a little more firmly because obviously people are listening, you know, as much as ever. You know, you would think that the video would have or the digital would have, but it's not. Audio is so super important to people.
I've had stations tell me, small market stations, that, you know, it's hard to find, what we were talking about, it's hard to find the personnel. All the kids now in college want to do digital. That's all they want to do is digital. They don't want to work at a local radio station. This is a great way to do that and get them inside a local radio station.
So, what's your name?
John,
we're like the same person. Okay, so like everything you say, I'm like, yes. And in fact,
That's what he tells you his name is.
I know.
well, I will fact check you later. That's part of my job.
He's in Woodstock.
I spent 20 years in local newspapers, and then I started building websites. I taught myself how to run social from a news perspective, right? And the email newsletters. I built some apps. We do right. So that's all self-taught because at the beginning it was just newspapers. What we are seeing is that a lot of our students, because it's the University of Georgia and it's a big flagship program, tend to think CNN, New York, right? You know, and I am desperate to get them into local newsrooms, in community organizations, because first of all, that's where the best journalism is. And so many of our students, when they go to the big shops, are put in the corner to do Facebook posts and are just shoveling content. And just so you know, they are very dissatisfied. Yeah. They want to report. They want to talk to people. A lot of our students of this generation are missions driven, right? They believe in journalism not just because they're good at writing or they're good at, you know, speaking or they're good at, it's because they believe it makes a difference in a working democracy. And so that kind of, like, but you can do that on day one in a community-based organization. So our goal is to introduce them to types of jobs that maybe don't occur to them off the top of their head, and get inside of your newsroom and experience what it's like.
That's unique. Your timing was perfect because that's what we've been talking about.
Oh, that's fine.
It's like you know, personnel and how to get key personnel in the small market radio station. I think it's a great idea. Anybody else have thoughts?
So we do a lot of digital, this TV station, right? Where we are. So we took it upon ourselves to start shooting a lot of video for
He's in
our news for our website, because one of our stations is a news talk. We took a young guy out of from Jacksonville State, and like got him a job in TV, doing TV at long breaks. They did that for a while, but he came over and not the greatest writer in the world, working on that.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
But he's been forced to be able, sometimes he's been the only person in the newsroom and he's been forced to go out. The news director has told him what to go do and this type thing, and they will follow what they do, get up and they go out. And they shoot a lot of video. And wrecks are always gonna be the thing. Wrecks, fires, if it leads, you know. But it's the other stuff that he does, they do a lot of human interest stories too. It's got something wrong this weekend called Schnauzer Fest.
Oh,
It's got all these, you
what are we
know.
doing here?
Yes. So the opening line was gonna be a lot of butts sniffing in Rome.
Can I, we've had a conversation, with Mr. Batten over there, Jeff, brother this morning. I'm just the biggest believer, and we were just talking amongst ourselves for a session that's coming up shortly, so we have to leave. In fact, if you want to run back up there, if we could get one station signed up for this and be the guinea pig or for whatever else, I think it could really help convince some of the other people. I just totally believe that my students, and I'll even use Mackenzie, you know, she was one of my students, and I think you've all seen what she's done for the GAB to take us to the next world of digital, social, newsletters, and all these things. The videos she's produced, the videos you'll see tonight, she's a one-person band, and now she's doing work for us, and she's still doing this stuff because their efficiency of what they can do with this phone, and what's the next size up before you get to a laptop? They can film things. I do have students already that are in doing sports full time in Delano. He's a full-time sports guy working with the university up there and the radio stations up there, and still getting this play-by-play itch. But he's got a job 9 to 5, and I think if we could get one student placed in this January thing, and then they can talk to us, you know, later in the month, you know, when we have our next Hall of Fame, that type of thing. I think we can really make some progress with it. So I hope that somebody in this room, and I know Bill and Howard have done it already, and I know some of the rest of you, but you don't. And by the way, you don't have to be a news. You don't have to have a news talk station. If you start doing music and you get back out in the community with it, you know, there's still mentioned the social media and Facebook and how to do that type of stuff. I think it really opens some doors in sales and marketing, like the question you asked.
Well, and I think I'm about to talk about that in a few minutes upstairs, but the research that I do, I'm not like a researcher, if that makes sense. Like I have a PhD, but like I'm not one of those like stuffy researchers. I'm in the newsrooms all the time researcher. What we're seeing is that building a digital presence is about building brand identification and loyalty that then does convert into a return on investment, right? It does convert. It's not a direct pay-for-play kind of, you know, ad sales kind of situation. And we know that, and that can be frustrating and also draining on resources. But we have seen people who have a robust digital presence as ultimately benefiting their bottom line because people know who they are, what they do, and what they offer them. And they're more willing to pay or engage in that because of that visibility.
I think one of the things that, the reason I was asking if it goes beyond new is because you see pretty much all of us in here, we're old, okay? No. I'm 15 years old in my head. But on some of our formats, we are looking for that because we just don't have anybody on staff. I need somebody that thinks in that demo.
You can reach that target market that you need to build up in order to move forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And help grow those people.
I think we do, like Bob said, if you get one person to do it, because I know, because statewide, dealing with so many small markets, I mean, you know, small markets where there's There's
One,
two
two
people. It's like 2 people running the whole station, and they need all help. And I can see this working great for them. They've never thought about that. So I think it would spread like wildfire.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I think it's great. Your
And
time
we
is
would
perfect.
love to expand the program even more,
Yeah.
so we're kind of prepared to do
Be
so.
careful what you ask.
That's
Well,
right.
I know, yeah.
We have to get more students, yeah, and it's free to the station.
And that's the thing, yeah, it's 100% free, so we have raised enough money for 15 students to pay them $1,000 for their work, and then to cover $1,000 worth of room, board, and transportation and food for the week. So, we feel very strongly about paying our students for their work, and this allows you to not have to worry about food or anything.
Yeah.
They just show up and help you.
Wow.
And that's it. Oh, by the way, a lot of them also, I've got on the website, so if you Google Grady Digital Natives, we have a full website with the applications, all the information, links to a promo video, and then what we did last year and some of the projects that we worked on, kind of some success stories. What's really cool is a lot of the students will leave like a playbook behind, and almost all of them do, where it'll be like a Google Drive filled with examples, walkthroughs, like step by step, this is how you do this. A lot of them will schedule out a month of social media in advance for you, so that you can just kind of, click and fill in the holes. So the idea is to not just come in and talk about things, but to actually get something done, complete, and out there, and then start that cycle for you. So those flavors.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We're glad you came in. That's perfect.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. I'll be following up in just a minute.
All right.
Since I've been at UGA, she's the third person they've had there, and she's the first one that's made it work. The first guy was, to use your words, an old guy that was trying to teach a new trick to it, and it just didn't work. And the second person came in and to check some boxes, and that didn't work. And now they have her, and she's just done light year things. What we're doing in our sports program now, the play-by-play that I work with is still, the main draw, but these kids are doing Instagram and YouTube videos during the game, and it's unbelievable how much stuff they're getting and how much advanced they are. Yes.
Is she associated at all with Talking Dog?
I don't know.
Are you familiar with that?
There's so many different aspects of what
Charles Davis and I had lunch about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the details of the target. I wasn't familiar with this until she started talking about it. And believe me, it's not just UGA. You saw the difference at Piedmont College.
Yeah.
Between the first year we went up to Piedmont College, and that was a sales training thing. The first year they came in, and they were good, they were interesting. A couple of them in particular really interested me. But the next year, they all came in, dressed for the thing much better. They were light years advanced over the kids we had the first year in the group. And they can do things. They can come in here and really do some things.
Wow.
They don't have to come from the University
So
of Georgia.
it's not that they can do things, these kids want to do things.
They're going to be with us a year and a half later. I mean, that's the thing that I struggle with UGA and the four-year colleges, is it's so exciting to hire one, and then they're gone.
But Jeff,
Well, I was going to ask Bob, is there a way to look at it's like Georgia Highlands, which is part of the university system, right? And they actually have a television, they now have a digital television. We do a lot of business with them. But if we go talk to those people, it's not the same as the academic people saying, here's what the plan is. How do we get Amanda or somebody to work through these other schools to say, hey, can we do an extension?
I want to address Jeff's statement because you're not going to change that. A year and a half would probably be the maximum you're going to keep one of these kids. And one of the reasons is because they're going to learn so much. What she just said, they all want to go to CNN or something like that, and they get put in a corner. When they can come to your studio or to your station and do everything and be a help in a lot of different areas, I do think they can help with the sales and marketing. Because I think they could go out to new store openings and be there to interview the owners and do things like the newspapers have done for years to take advantage of that. And it's going to be somewhat a learning curve. somebody can tell you a success story better than, I'm in an ivory tower, I've been in a broadcast station now for a dozen years. And one of my favorite things to do is to walk into a radio or television station and feel it again. And I realize it's changed a lot, but you're not gonna keep a good dog down. They're gonna they're gonna move on.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you can become known as a feeder from college through larger markets and have that reputation, I think that you'll never want for good, dedicated people again. We did that in Athens at Southern. Now that's been a few years ago. Athens is right there at Grady's back door. I get all that. But the GAB Radio Talent Institute has been a blessing to us at Golden Isles because people know, I guess because I try never to miss a day of that. I go to every single day I can possibly do it, hand out 1,000 business cards, and I either give those cards or refer them to either Mark or Ira. But we've sort of become known for, hey, if I want to get my start, and we ask them, we want you to be here for 2 years. If you do us that deal, we will help you get to the next place. And then other people like Dan Valley and others around the state and whatnot will go, you know what, Ira and Mark will give you a great opportunity, and that sort of feeds back to kids who will follow in their footsteps. Not all of them will be home runs, but if you're at least not trying to get people to walk in, fill out an application who, frankly, Jeff, you don't want. I would take somebody for a year and a half or 2 years, every time.
Oh, no, right. Well, that's the thing. I just have found that's not what I want.
Okay, that's why this is a great country that
I want
it is.
this young lady who's been with me for 11 years to stay another 11 years. I mean, that's sales, engineering, production, programming, we've all got that. That part of it, we can handle. It's just the people that leave you with all the institutional knowledge that they've acquired in that year and a half standards, and you're starting all over again.
It's the nature of the beast.
And it's just, the silver and the white hair just continues to grow.
But see, at this point, we sort of look at this, this now is our role to bring the next generation through and build and craft as fine radio stations as we possibly can. Those are the rules we play by.
I don't know of anybody that started with a radio station and retired.
No, it's
a
not.
radio station.
We did.
I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Sanders, let me dovetail on that. That is a frustration, Jeff. I feel your pain, as you and I
I
talk.
know you do.
I feel your pain, but at the same time, I can count. I was just sitting here trying to count. I've lost count. I can't get all of them, but I count at least 7 that we have graduated. We usually hang on people between 2 to 4 years. Sometimes we 4 years out, but
It's a long time.
I don't know if any of you guys know who Judd Higginbotham is.
Sure, but you feed them to WSB.
Judd, Sabrina Cupid.
We get a lot of.
Sabrina Cupid,
them.
Matt McClure.
Yeah.
Went from us to you, and then went up to New York and came back. Scott Kimbler.
Yeah.
Bill Caccio, which is a name that goes way back. He was one of our guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes. Mark Adelwine, he was with SB forever. He just retired. So on the one side, yeah, it frustrates me, but on the other side, I agree wholeheartedly with Sanders. I was sitting in my office 15 years ago, frustrated about that, and why are there not any good young folks to come through here? And then I thought, well, that's my job. I need to find people who have the passion, who have some form of talent, and see if I can mold them into what they're going to be. And if they want to stay, fine. When I hire somebody, I've hired 4 people out of grade in the past 3 years.
Out of where?
Pardon?
Where did you hire him from?
Out of grade. Yeah, out of grade. Actually, in the past 5 years or so. One of them moved because her boyfriend moved and she can't help that. But she did a great job when she was there. But the rest of them are still there and have done great work. And at some point, I don't know if I'll lose them. And I tell them when I hire them, I hope to get 4 years out of you. If you want to stay here forever, I'm all about it and we'll make it worth your while. But if you move on, I understand it.
We
But
will teach you how to
Exactly.
build a career.
exactly, but I've taken that sort of.
Maybe
I like the fact that we graduated so many people.
Yeah.
Me too.
Overlay.
Pride.
so that you've got that person that's in there, you've got some underneath.
We all have a stagger, yeah, they're all staggered.
I guess one of the points that I wanted to make from her coming down here, and I want to go back and hear what she's going to talk about now upstairs. Yeah, it's all video type. But is, and if I can go back in my ivory tower, because this is an ivory tower statement, you know, I think you got to start looking at what they're going to do for you, not what you're going to do for them. I believe that the messaging beyond what you do on your regular stations is where the puck is going. And newspapers figured it out before we did. The television stations, I think, are ahead of radio stations. And I just believe that they can expand what they can do for you from an information point of view, from a community service point of view, and eventually from a revenue producing sales point of view.
You're talking about what Amanda was just talking about.
Yes.
Right, the second. Yes.
And I totally believe that these kids can come down there. They're naive. They're as green as grass. I love Garrett, you know, but he's another typical kid from the radio talk show. I think twice.
Yeah.
And he's 110% energy, but there are still times where his naivety comes out, and what he can do. But in general, they can do an awful lot for you, just like Garrett and Mackenzie have done for me for the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I hated losing Mackenzie. We were able to kind of keep him anyway. It's just, it's where the puck is going, to borrow that old expression. And I think you got to look at it. What they can do for you is because they're not going to do your 9-to-5 job. They're not good at that kind of stuff. But they're really good at expanding what your product can, and if I can say, should be. I just wanted to say 2 other things real quick. I'm hoping that the people in this room are taking advantage of our sales training. We have several hundred people that are signed up for it now, between the RAB sales training and even more of the library that the local broadcast sales has. And I think it's one of the best media benefits we have, member benefits that we have. And a lot of it is independent. You may not even know your people are signed up for it, but what we're going to try to do now is develop that with the journalism side. We've signed up with 330 other state associations to hire Pointer Institute, Al Tompkins, to do news, and that's what I'm going up to, the next one comes on November 4th. It's on storytelling, and the next one's on, I'm trying to find what else we have here, but we've got 3 sessions, 1 a month, that we're going to try, if we can keep the other states together, to afford them maybe at no cost, just like the sales is. Not 1 penny to be part of our sales training, and not 1 penny to be part of the journalism. We haven't done a good job of promoting the journalism, and I think a lot of radio people, it's not for us, but it is. I think we can learn a lot about, I think we've got to get back in the news business. I just, in radio.
I think, Mom, you brought up a point, though. A lot of people, it's like what we've tried to do with Berry College. They all want to do TV. They want to do TV, they don't.
They don't want to do TV anymore. They want to do digital, what you just said. That's what they really
They
want.
want to be able to do both of them, but radio is just, that's an unfortunate thing. It's just not part of their curriculum anymore. And I think with something like this, it would be a great opportunity.
Well, and again, when she started explaining this to me, I said, I gotta get down.
I'm glad you did. It's perfect timing too.
So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look, yes.
Let me ask you a question. I should know the answer to this before I ask it in the middle of a forum like this, but does the GAB have a job bank? In other words, if I need an assistant news director, I don't need to go to a website, a national website. I can call, I can look and see that there were 3 guys that were laid off from ABE, WSB, WD, whatever, and I can, immediately grab somebody that is regional from the area, doesn't have to relocate.
We do, and I used to be embarrassed about it, but it's improved. And I would say we probably get a couple of new ones every week. We get a couple every month, but we really do have, it's built up.
Could that be a part of the newsletters that you guys send out? I mean, I don't ever see links about that in the e-newsletter.
It's a great idea. That really is.
Yeah, I mean, if people from programming go to all access, and there are people that are willing to put stuff out there, can't we not do the same thing where, you know, where there are checks and
Well,
stuff?
the guy that got laid off from Bull that works for me, the first thing he ought to have done is go to the GAB because he doesn't want to move to Idaho any more than Idaho wants him.
Yeah.
So it ought to be like we're here in, you know, North Georgia, the whole state
And
of
if we could
Georgia.
have something
and we're
like
glad
that
to be
where
here.
GAB has, it's kind of like, hey, I'm looking. From the talent point of view.
Yeah, as opposed to I'm hiring, I'm looking, I'm hiring, that would be good. I like that.
Well, the idea of stressing in a newsletter, and that's another thing. We have young adult sons and daughters, or these students, you know, they're not, this what, put it on essentially a text message, or essentially a voicemail. They don't send and, they do an or, you know, whatever they're into. And they don't understand that by the time they've gone to the third or fourth source, one of them is going to penetrate, you know, that person's mind, whether it's a newsletter or going to our website or you know, or attending meetings like this. So we definitely need to do that, and that's a simple thing. And you know what? I'll get some resistance. Well, why from our editors? Because, well, we've already done that. You know, they should know that already. You know, but they don't. You know. I don't think people, you know, and bless them, I think the world of both Mackenzie and Garrett, but they don't understand how busy you guys are, you know, and how many things that you have, and however level busy you were before COVID, you're even more busy now because everything takes longer to get done. And it, you know, we can't insult you by sending it to you for the fourth or fifth time, because it might be the fourth or fifth time you're reading it for the first time. They just don't understand that yet. And that's one of the biggest things with young people in general, whether my daughter or your kids or the people you employ. But that's a great idea, and we will get that done.
Yeah, I mean, literally, people come to the GAB, and these are people looking for jobs, and they're in the state. It doesn't matter if they're in Alabama, I don't care. I don't think any of us care where they are, as long as we have access to them.
Well, there's
or that we know who's out there.
There's a lot of people that want to come back home.
And all access is not be this, you know, there's a bunch of crap, forgive the language, postings on there that.
Well, yeah,
It's
all
because
access
it's like
has
Craig- it's
got
like
to a
Craigslist.
point where,
You know,
yeah, it's just.
It's brutal. Back to the, you know, selfishly, you want to keep the people that you get from the college, you want to keep them as long as you can, especially if you find a good, passionate kid that really is sucking everything in and taking everything that you're learning. But one of the greatest joys and compliments you can give, or you can get rather, is when that kid that you know, taught for the amount of time you have them, when they move on to greener pastures, it's the most rewarding thing ever. I get one of the hang on to it, and I absolutely want that, but I also enjoy seeing somebody that learned from me and my team move on to bigger, better things. It's incredible.
I want to, and Sanders will know this better than anybody, but when I was going to school in Georgia, this was back in the late 60s, 70s, and that station continued this. There was one radio station in Athens. It was a top 40 station, and everybody that was on the air was a student. Everybody. There were no people that were on the air that weren't students. Scott Slade came out of that station. You had other people. You had people go to Miami. You had people go to New York. You had people go to Los Angeles.
Satellite radio.
That one radio station during a period of about 7 years turned out people that wound up, I know at least 30 people in major markets.
We had the same thing
Including-
at Southern Illinois University.
Including Howard too.
You know,
True.
He was lucky to have a job.
But here's the thing about that. That radio station persevered and continued to do that as a major market feeder for 25 years.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of it had to do with the management. in the fact that, the whole goal was to be as good as you could possibly be. You wanted to be as good. The people that were there all had the idea of, hey, we want to be in a major market, we want to be big. And I think the management understood, and it was kind of like, I love you, you're doing good. If you get the opportunity to go to someplace big, now we just got to find the next person to be able to come out.
Yeah, it's frustrating to work with someone and train them.
Thanks, Bob.
Steve, I just said, this is where my heart is.
Yeah.
I wish I could just spend the whole day with you guys.
Thanks for bringing her in here.
Yes, thank you.
That's what I still love.
Yeah.
You know, listening to Sanders yesterday talk and both with a little bit of stick and a carrot, but we can be and should be again, which is great. But we got to get just more people in the room. You know, I almost think we're teaching to the choir, preaching to the choir, right? Because so many of you are doing so many more than the rest, and so many more people in our state need to hear this. And I think we got to try and figure out a way to do something quarterly. You know, where we set something up and use this as a nucleus. And maybe it's like church. Everybody brings one friend. You know,
Yeah.
You know, from another market. You know, to come and participate.
That's what I was just about to bring up what we were talking about yesterday. It's funny you mentioned that, because the incoming chairman, and Sanders and I had a discussion about this yesterday. That's something I want to focus on, because I travel all over the state, you know, as part of my, not a lot lately, but I get to go in a lot of small stations, and I always say, you know, have a board member of the GAB, we'd love to have you involved, get more involved in the GAB. And oh, really, you know, but it doesn't pan out all the time, but I try to put it out there. We were talking yesterday about traveling, and we all see people, we all see different broadcasters, we're all friends with different people, just mentioning that. And it's sort of like bringing a friend to church, but talk about, you did it years ago with the GAB to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's a great, to get back to that. Talk about what y'all did years ago.
Well, we sort of, back during the year that I was there.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you throughout the day, and look forward to seeing everybody tonight. It's going to be a great event.
Thanks, Bob. Back during the year that I was chairman, we broke the state up into quadrants. And, you know, we had a whole year to do it. And we made road trips. And we walked into radio stations that knew the three letters GAB, but they had no clue what this is all about, what it offered. They didn't understand the resource that it is, the legal resource, the congressional outreach, and the relationship engagement that we have with the Georgia congressional delegation, as well as state politics. The things that, and we provide way more than that now than we ever did before. So we walk into these places, introduce ourselves. What don't you know about us? What can we tell you that you may have wondered about GAB? And let me just give you a little bit of a breakdown. Left behind a little packet, and the next thing you knew, these people thought, whoa, these people actually thought enough of us to stop and talk to us about it. And I don't think that that's happened much since then, but man, it was so rewarding, and people would show up to these events. They felt invited. They felt like they had been engaged.
Now, Sanders, I'm going to ask you a question. In the government, those years were going back. How many people did most stations have?
Well, no question about it. I mean, it was before the '96 telecom.
Yeah. And I think one of the things today is like in our area. I've got the stations that are operating outside of us. It's the owner. They have one person, two people. I can't tell you the number of people that are operating stations with 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the entire staff.
Many of our affiliates are, because we're their news department, pretty much.
And so to go and talk to them, there were a couple of people that I'm trying to talk to again, it's like, I don't have time for that, you know, and it's kind of like, well, you don't really have time not to take advantage of it. But if you're one person or 2 people, something like that.
It's why we do what we do on a Saturday to try to accommodate a small staff, would be my answer to that. And there are stations that I can think of without trying really hard. I don't think anybody's reached out before. I mean, John and Bobby Foster. We haven't seen anybody from WCON in years that I'm aware of. Oh, so sorry. I didn't know you were sitting back there, but I'm delighted. You're awfully quiet. But, well, I'm sorry, and I should have, I'll take my foot right out of my mouth. But that's an iconic radio station in Northeast Georgia that for years and years and years was always a member of everything that we did. There are some others in Southwest Georgia, down around Bainbridge. There are more in Ira and Mark's territory down that probably, and when I drive to Brunswick from Athens, there are probably a dozen stations I could stop into on the way to work and back to have these same conversations. I hope you'll accept my apology. That was not intentional. But those road trips I thought were very important, and they were useful, and they were inclusive, and they were engaging. And I would suggest that would be something worth reconsidering.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to focus on next year to do, because I think there's some people that, we're right now, we need 4 board members, I think Bob mentioned yesterday. It'd be great to have board members, from smaller markets, or from anywhere really, but Southwest Georgia, where that's home for me, where we've lost so many stations. My station in Dawson, where I started out, has been off the air 20 years, so.
Well,
but there's still people out there.
So you talk about Southwest Georgia, you got
Albany, yeah.
You got, and it's basically, with the exception of the new people that just bought Plus Air out of West Virginia.
Right.
Maybe those are people we ought to be talking.
That's a great opportunity.
Because again, they bought the entire Cumulus. Now, I understand why, but maybe that's an independent operator.
Yeah.
Maybe that would help again.
Yeah, I think so, and they're an affiliate of ours, and I'm starting to get to know them, so they would be great to have that. We have America's down. Well, we have, yesterday, Jay Palmer was here, Tommy Palmer's son, for example. He works for Flint Media, and they have 7 stations, I think it is, in Bainbridge, Donaldsonville, Pelham, I want to get them. I'm glad Jay was here to see more about what we do. So I think there's, opportunities out there. I think that's something the next year we definitely want to focus on doing too. The dovetail too in the ad sales, and the fact that you have smaller staffs now. You guys touched on it a little bit, being connected with ad sales and relationship selling. What about community engagement? Has that suffered because of small staff with you guys? I know it's so important to the lifeblood of.
It has been. We just hired a young man, and he's here today. We're paying for him to be your sales staff, right? And this guy, I'm really happy he wanted to move back to the area. He's been in small market radio, boom. But he's chosen a community, and he's started to get involved in political, and he wants to be a part of this community. And he's starting to work through, it's kind of like, okay, who are all the people that I need to know? Who are the power brokers? And I think he has some aspirations that he will stay in the area because he has some aspirations in another aspect. I'm fortunate that my partner is on the city council of Rome as a member of his commission. We do keep that separate because there are things when that comes up that he just does not participate on the radio station and/or we don't cross those paths because there are times when we might say something in news that's not particularly favorable. And that, that things come up, so we try to avoid conflict. But I do think, again, because we've got so many smaller staffs, it's hard to get them involved. They're already doing 5 jobs.
Yeah. Howard, you said yours.
Yeah, I find that we're more involved.
Really?
We've got 3.5 stations, 4 stations that we operate. We have 7 people. And we broadcast from all of the chamber events. Right? we broadcast from all the city events, right? We're the people that everybody goes to when anything's going on in the market. And, you know, we don't get any money from it
Right.
directly.
Right.
But indirectly, we get pile of money from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And, you know, when the pandemic hit, you know, we were the guys that they went to, and, you know, what we did, and we literally, I hate to say this, but 2020 was the best year in the history of the company, if I recall.
Really? Wow.
But when April hit and everybody was dying and people were canceling, we didn't allow them to cancel.
Really? How'd you do that?
We kept the schedules on, we just didn't charge them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? And by the time you got through the end of April, and they realized, you know what, the bottom, I mean, hasn't completely gone, they started coming back.
Yeah.
Right? And they said, okay, well, now we can afford to do this, so we continued the scheduling, and by the time the third quarter hit,
Yeah.
right, we were back to normal.
Yeah.
And then beyond. But it was because we were so involved in the community. There is nothing that goes on in and around the Golden Isles that our radio stations are not involved in.
Yeah.
And part of it.
Wasn't that the difference between us and Atlanta? I mean, Atlanta was decimated.
Mhm.
Atlanta advertising was decimated.
Yeah.
I could listen to the River do their typical 6-minute commercial block, and they were inventing units in order to put on the air. Meanwhile, what do you think, Hazel? We probably lost 2 clients, maybe total, and I bet a lot of people share the same story, that they might have taken a little water on there for a second, but they mostly came back. And that's, again, the difference between transactional and relationship selling.
Yeah.
It's funny you mention that. We're a small radio market. And, yeah, that's also, you know, came out of the way we did it. 77% of our business, you know, was agency related in some shape or form.
77%.
70%. So it's a lot. And when it hit, on the bottom, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like that. So it wasn't just the big markets, but it's just taken us, you know, we're still bouncing back out there. But yeah, that was a major factor.
Yeah. Anybody else? I mean, you're very community involved in DUN. You guys are working.
I don't have an idea what's going on. Who cares?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, constantly doing
Yeah.
something. I mean, that's, you know, if you're gonna be local, you gotta be there. I mean, you have to be, you have to, I told the staff not long ago, I said, you know, the thing is, we're a mirror of where we live. And when we look at what we do, if we don't see the reflection of the town that we live in, the community we live in, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So, we're, you know.
And I listen to y'all, obviously, a good bit too, and I feel like I know some of the people, like we were talking about last night. There are people that come on your air that I want to meet. I want to literally stop their characters, and I want to literally stop by their places.
I warned you off a couple
I
of
know, and
times.
I literally want to stop by their store and say, I just want to meet you because you come on the radio and say just colorful figures, and so it's very, you know, you're very connected. Yeah.
Well, you don't, I don't think you survive in the community if you're not part of the community.
Right.
We are part of
Not
the
to
community.
embarrass anybody, but if you don't know, Joe Willie Souza just came in. Joe is the top morning show in Golden Isles. And is also.
Your name precedes you, your reputation precedes you, so I know who it is. Yeah.
He's also the top seller at the radio station and the most involved in the community.
Yeah.
It's like a mayor.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, talk about that, because we were talking about that, how programming and sales have now joined forces with you guys. Talk about you now, you've got the whole thing, the whole ball of wax.
Well, you know, it's going back to what you were just saying, you gotta be the community, and it's like running a political campaign all the time, just kissing babies, shaking hands, and I go back to, I'll tell you all quick, a thing that happened to me when I was working in Augusta. I was having lunch with my morning show partner, who's now deceased. She was a great talent. Her real name was Bobby Jones, her real name was Jennifer, and somebody came up to our table and recognized, I had been there maybe about 3 months, and they recognized our voices, and they came up and they talked, and you know, I talked to them, and then they talked to her, and she says, no, I'm not working right now, I'm Jennifer. And I got on a case about that. I said, you know, if they recognize you, if you're playing a character on the air, you've got to be that character when people meet you. The best thing to do is just be yourself all the time. That's what all of us try to do. But that's the key is, you know, people come up, you gotta give them the show. You know,
Oh, right.
if you don't do the show all the time, and when they come up to you, you gotta come on. Otherwise, you make them mad, and they'll never see you in that same light again.
Well, the easiest way to do that is what you just said. What you are on the air is what you are in life. You can't, I mean, some people do a great job of creating characters, but I can't live as a character. I mean, well, I am, but I just, you
So
are.
the most part works out better, you know, when you're, they know you, they've heard of you, then you walk in the door and you've got a common ground, so it makes it a lot easier.
When the state trooper in Bend, Oregon told me that he had met you.
How fast were you
I know, in what capacity have you been?
Backstory.
Uh-oh.
Which is not one.
I was gonna say, aren't you compelled to tell it now?
We made a slight contribution to the state coffers of Oregon. He goes, Georgia, what do you do? And I said, I'm involved with some radio stations in southeast Georgia. Really? Where? Brunswick? He goes, do you by any chance know Joe Willie? I do. And he goes, I'll be right back with your ticket. But he called
You
you
didn't like the show, I guess.
by name. Now, I had come. And the same thing's true with you in Hall and Northeast Georgia and BJ and Joel Williams up there and all these guys. I mean, you know, you guys have earned you've earned what you do every single morning.
And you guys, I mean, you invoke Joel, you guys at Nick Kimberly, the same thing, CON.
Oh,
I mean, that's
he
huge.
is sensational.
I listened to BJ and Joel when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and I followed them from station to station. And now Joel's at WCON,
Yeah.
and that's his real.
Yes, yeah. You guys.
So do you ever tell Joel, do you ever say to him, I grew up listening to you? Try that one.
What about AdSense? I had stations mention to me, and station, I had emails from stations to get some ideas, and one specifically emailed me back and said, you know, we have a problem, you know, we're not really rated, but people are always saying, well, can you show us ratings? Can you show us ratings? And they do relationship selling just like you guys. But talk about it.
Yeah, we're in an interesting situation because we do not subscribe. We are a rated market.
Yeah.
And because we do not subscribe, in the latest book, they don't show us. So, our competition
Right.
does subscribe corporately.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I get a call from a client that's been with us for a long time. And they'll say, well, gee, you know, so-and-so came in from the other radio station and they showed us all these numbers and what huge audience they have. Can you show us some numbers? And my response has always been, you're a local business. You've been with us for a long time. You may like Joe Willie, you may like Mark, you may like me. But if we are not delivering for you, would you continue to advertise with us? Well, of course not. I said, so what difference does a number make? Right? If we have 50 people and those 50 people respond to everything we do, isn't that better than when somebody that has 10,000 that doesn't respond? Right? Listen to our radio station, and 95% of the people that are on the air are local businesses. Local businesses only survive based on people coming in and spending money in their store. Listen to the competition and see what they've got. All right? And roughly 50 to 60% of what they've got is either promoting their corporate themselves or national and regional stuff that buys purely off of ratings. Right? That's what supports us, and that's what keeps us going. And he's never lost a piece of business on that.
We do subscribe. We're an unrated market, but I buy NRD and county by county. And I buy NRD. I don't have to use the county by county. I like NRD better because it allows you to be able to mix a spring and fall or three books together or something like that. I buy it not because I believe in it. I buy it because I want to know we do get a lot of, all of our McDonald's business comes through the rep now. And we have so many QSR, we have so much of our business that comes from agencies. I need to really know what they're looking at so I know how to combat that. Because they'll go down through and they'll take a look at a number and say, well, I want to be on this station. That's kind of like, no, I understand why you think you want to be on the station, it's one of ours, but you really need to be on this other station to be able to reach that, you know, what you're really looking for.
It only takes one agency buy to be more than pay for the book. It's not a lot of money.
And for an if you're in an NRD market, it doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, my friend over that runs some stations in Huntsville, I mean, it's a much bigger market, $16,000 a month, it's a lot of money. Saga has figured out a way to be able to sell without numbers. And more power to them, they're a good group of broadcasters, but I do buy NRD. And I also buy something called Ryzen, which is Polk Automotive Data. I had to get a special dispensation. I get the Atlanta market and Chattanooga. I have the ability that when people do their cars again, I can show one dealer against another. I can show you where their zip codes are. I can show you every car that was bought and all that. And it makes it, you put together a presentation and it's kind of like these are the people that are taking your money. But when we talk about that, the data that's when you're in a non-rated market, the data that you're getting, the in-tabs, and what you get back, it's a snapshot in time. You can't believe it. The only thing I really look for is you. That's the only thing I really care about.
Howard, for years, when I worked at Arbitron, boy, I'm walking on some thin ice here.
You've already had a busy morning, keep going.
Yeah,
Very close to like getting a ticket.
my foot is so far down my throat already.
And your criminal endeavors in Oregon.
What
so
can go
we're-
wrong?
Since there is no company known as Arbitron anymore, I will share this. There was great pressure on us you gotta go sell county by county coverage. And I made it my business to look deeply into the methodology of what that was. And I drilled down to what the per person diary value.
It's awful.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
It was the most irresponsible, if you want to use the word data behind it, so I wouldn't sell it. And even when people would ask me for it, I'd make them ask 2 or 3 times before I'd say, okay, I'm going to send you this, and I'm going to tell you it's barely worth the paper it's printed on. And I told the guy who I was working for at the time, I said, what are we doing here? All of this data is at the earliest 18 months ago. At the most recent, it's 12 months ago. And show me a marketplace that hasn't changed in the last 90 or 120 days.
And the only thing, that's why I use NRD, because I can look at it in 6 months. It's 6 months old.
Yeah.
And I take a look at our streaming data too, because I tend to believe our streaming data more than I do the other. But if that's somebody else's currency, it's kind of like, I want to know what they're saying about me. I want to know what they're going to use against me.
Yeah, I think it's important to know, have some general idea of what your audience is like. But when I look at ratings, I used to own radio stations in State College, Pennsylvania. Center County in Pennsylvania is the largest geographic county in the state of Pennsylvania. State College is in the southwest corner of that county. Williamsport, Pennsylvania is in a different county, but right at the edge of the northeast corner of the county. And every other book, first of all, you cannot get the Williamsport stations in State College, and you can't get the State College stations in Williamsport. But every other book for State College, the Williamsport stations were the #1 stations in the market. Right? Because the research does not go zip code wise and population wise, it's county wise. So it's such an inaccurate.
And that's the reason that I take a look at it, because again, if I were to make my business on Rome, if I were to depend on Rome or Floyd County, I'd starve to death. I mean, I look at a 5-county area, and those 5 counties are what's important to me. What's their total cume, and when you start getting in, it's kind of like, all right, well, let me pull up 18 to 24. You get not, okay? You're lucky you can get 18 plus. If you can get a 25, 54, now I can sit and run a tap scan on 25, 54, and I got a pretty good idea on stuff, but I'm playing it only because I want to sit there, I want to be the person manipulating the data back to somebody who's telling me what they're going to do. I don't want to let anybody else control what I do.
What about rep firms? You guys, I had a conversation with the station about rep firms recently, and what we do with state radio networks, we have a firm called State Nets, and that's all, they're 31 state radio networks, and they rep us, and just rep us only, and just do buys for state radio networks. But I had a conversation with the station about his rep firm and these rated stations, and I said, he was talking to me about a buy that we got, and I said, you might want to talk to your rep firm about that. It's not, but do you guys use rep firms, and do they help you out?
Yeah.
You do? Everybody have one?
We use, I mean, most people, you don't really have a whole lot of choice right now. It's, it's Gen Media.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use Gen Media also.
Yeah.
Again, we're still, you're fighting the CAPS issue, which CAPS is owned by the major companies.
Sure.
Right? And, depending upon where you're sitting geographically, we're halfway between Savannah and Jacksonville.
Right, yeah.
So because we're halfway between Jacksonville and Savannah, when business comes up, it's usually covering at least 2 of the 3 markets, right? And when it's covering 2 of the 3 markets, the major company will use the smaller of the markets to be able to bring in the dollars for the larger market, right? Which eliminates the ability to be able to pick up the business. So we have Gen Media. In some areas they do a decent job for us, but we don't count on it.
Right.
Well, they did a great job in political for us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they did a great
But
job,
see, they didn't
because
have
we
much-
would have never had known where to go.
They didn't have much choice on that either, because, in the state of Georgia.
And, so everybody, Roger Reeves, everybody's
You were off the air.
Yeah. Is that, everybody do well? I know we did great political. Everybody locally do pretty well political wise?
The most important person in the radio station during political was the traffic director. Because ours was there on Saturdays and Sundays to make sure that everything was taken care of. And all the copy was right, and everything was going. And without that person, we would have had a real problem.
Yeah, because you have to get it in right away. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Clear Kate spot at 2 a.m. in the morning is enough to make you want to cry.
Yeah. We could, I wish I had more inventory. We ran out of inventory quickly.
But we made it.
Yeah. We tried to.
Let me throw something out with regard to, talk about the credit line, sorry. And it's your thoughts. And we do some business we can as well. But this is an issue, and I sat down and had this conversation with Rev in Atlanta a few months ago. Obviously there are multiple arms, multiple fingers to that company. And you got the same.
They're involved in a lot.
You got the same damn rep firm repping multiple stations in the market. So when you're sitting in front of the agency, and this is my direct question to you, like, okay, you're my rep for Greensboro. You're my competitor's rep for this brand underneath your umbrella. Who are you going?
That comes back to relationships and who's easy to work with, because so much of Gen Media now has gone to, just like everything else, has gone to unwired or network, and they've given a pool of money. And why it's so important for you to know the franchisee in your market is because that franchisee will dictate back, I want X, and it really is. That's how we get a lot of the money.
The rep business has changed dramatically over the years. I started as an actual rep, and at that point, individual rep companies only dealt with specific stations, and there was no crossover. But once consolidation hit, that all changed.
Yeah, I mean, so
And then you've got the largest rep firm.
You got
owned
cats.
by
So
the largest broadcaster.
Do they buy, will cats buy you guys, or they'll just put it on their?
Okay, so I mean, we're gonna either get Gen Media or we don't get it.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Yeah.
We could we could probably pick up one of the groups that are attached, but why?
Yeah,
Okay, if you do that, you don't think that they're not talking to each other.
right.
Okay? And the bigger issue is that, when national business comes up, right, if you've got any of the CATS firms, okay, the question becomes, do I want to pitch to get 15% of the dollars because I'm putting the business on a station that's not owned by our company?
Right.
Or do you want to get 100% of the dollars?
Right.
Okay, because I'm putting it on a station that we own.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the only rep firm you guys, anybody else deal with other rep firms?
I don't think there are any
I don't think there is.
of the small
Just small
markets.
markets, really.
There's not anybody else out there.
Gen Media now owns a bunch of, they consolidated a bunch of the smaller rep
Yeah.
firms.
Who do you get from them? What business?
I mean, it's kind of like Gen Media is now McGavin Guild, or,
Oh, okay.
I mean, they have a lot of arms they've gotten into. There's some digital products that they've gotten into. Sun Broadcast Group was now acquired by Gen Media. I mean, Gen Media owns a lot of stuff, and their goal is to really, I think, get a little bit bigger and go into mid-sized markets. But they've done stuff that's really funny is that everything I see so many things that are unwired.
Yeah.
And basically, it's just like, here's the pool of money, and you better know who to talk to get
Here's
your
another
share.
one. Here's another one for you, and under the same umbrella. And I don't see that, get your finger on this. Because I think this is extremely interesting and extremely dangerous. Yeah, when it came down to it. And I don't know how many of you guys have before compensation rules, but obviously that's something that's in play for a lot of people. But the rep firm is now getting into network business. And I got an bill request. Yeah, I got a bill request. Yeah, a month or so ago. Said, okay, we're looking to go into the network business. Yeah, how many bills would you like to clear? Go sure and so forth. And of course we gave him what our normal rate is, not what the network operates are. They came back to me last week and said, well, here's the deal. Yeah, $5 is fine. And then of course they're going to take big things off of that. That's true. And no way. But the point being, if they're getting into the network business and going after this bigger pool of money, then where are the avails going to come from?
I'm gonna share it. Maybe I can know it now. Something. Probably once or twice a year, I'll get a call from somebody, from a lot of different syndication companies. Next gen will come down. We'll give you $25,000. We'll give you $40,000 a year, and I'll start probing on it. And it's a Cumulus Westwood buy. The compensation is coming from Cumulus. It's coming from Westwood One, and it's my attitude is I'm not going to take that money. Here's why. Because once I do, I just knocked out some business that I was getting at a more exorbitant rate than what they're going to pay me. And so it's like I choose not to take the money because I will wind up hurting myself and some of the business that I'm getting. That the only way they can find me is through the rep firm or direct.
Well, not concerned with the rep going into the network business. And we've already seen this.
We can turn it down.
Oh, no, we did. And I'll use this, I don't know if you guys have these in Georgia or not, O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Yep. O'Reilly used to be a really good advertiser until it went all network.
Into the whole network,
Yeah.
that's one way. So if you got your rep firm that's been on the network business, that's still keeping that money out of local, out of local.
And you know what? I don't know if because I used to sell national too. I had the ability to once upon a time sell the entire United States. Okay. And I was much more selective in the networks because I could go through and it was a whole lot of fun to do a 12, 14, $15 million job. I mean, sale. That's a whole different animal.
Those network deals, because I used to do them on the other side at Westwood for years, we did cost per thousand, average quarter hour. But we would always get calls when the ratings went down below 3,000 average quarter hour. People would call and want to cancel. We get all the time. got yelled at so many times, but I would have even done one of those deals back then. Is it still like that, I guess, it comp deal with network?
Actually, the last one we did, and what I'm underneath right now, they negotiated about one rate, they did 12 months. The last two deals I've done.
Yeah.
This is just 12 months, they didn't bounce off the, off the quarter numbers.
Oh, okay, yeah, so you don't have a bad book,
And you
boy.
always get up front.
And you look at it and you're like, man, we're paying this station literally
Well,
like 20 cents a spot when you break it down, because all the inventory.
Everybody in here has their own market, and they have their own different way of selling. There are things that we're related to, but everybody has their own unique situation. And, probably all of us operate in a little bit different fashion. I think, the network stuff, all of us probably have a ton of barter. The only way to be able to get it is through some kind of barter, unless you're willing to pay. There's some places that I will ask, and it's kind of like I'd rather pay in cash. Nope, can't do it, and it's bartered out. And so if you want it, and so you wind up with a good bit of your time is going to go through, but I also do it with the understanding is if I see something on that barter that I don't like, and that airtime or the spots that they're doing, I do not promise you I'm going to clear that.
I was trying to cancel a barter the other day, and they said, well, I'll tell you what, can you open up your rotator? And I said, heck yeah, I can. I was 5A to 10P zone. And they said, well, if you'll do that, we'll stay with you.
Yeah, we try to do that too, and there's some things that they'll go through and they'll do. Some things they'll do, but it just depends on, it just really depends on if you've got a non-rated station. Good luck, because they're going to force it on something that does have numbers. And that's just just a way of life. There's a question I would like to bring up in here, because all the stuff that we hear, we're in small markets. But more and more and more, I'm coming across people that are coming into our markets that expect OTT. They expect some kind of digital presence. And we're under Marbitron, and we can sell digital through Marbitron. We can sell display. We can sell video rolls. We can sell pre-rolls. We can sell, and I can sell OTT. But OTT, I can't buy Google. I can't buy YouTube because it's all walled garden. I have found a way to be able to have other people buy it. Do you guys run into that at all? Because, direct mail, I sat in on a seminar. Direct mail has taken more money out of our pockets than any of us sitting here realize. Direct mail up until digital will pass direct mail as far as where money comes from. Mark Levy and I were talking about this, and Mark does a lot of stuff with direct mail. Be sure you get an opportunity to sit in and listen to one of the things he's talking about. But in direct mail, these people, you get a car dealership that's doing direct mail, it's a $25,000 to $30,000 campaign. That's a lot of money that went out. And Mark says you get somebody that's doing this, you're going to wind up, he says, you're never going to keep them from doing it. But from a radio perspective, we turn around and say, if they've got this thing coming out and they're bulk mail, we seem to get that on time. Now, if you want to mail the letter,
Right, that's right.
that's right. It going to happen. It takes 12 days to go someplace, but this third-class bulk stuff, they'll ship it out 10 to 11 days. And that's the whole thing was, do a campaign, look in your mailbox this weekend, it's coming, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You run it past a couple of days to be able to do that. And his whole thing was, okay, if the response goes up from the direct mail that people did that, and it came through broadcast, then eventually you're going to start getting credit for that. And he said it's a way for you to be able to do, get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's the digital and having people on my staff that understand it, because it's a whole different guys sell any digital at all?
No, we sell it locally.
But locally, but do you go through, I mean, we did a campaign for an insurance company last year. It was for the entire state of Georgia. And it was a geofencing thing, and I would not recommend geofencing to anybody now because of all the privacy stuff that's going through, but do any of you do that?
We do a lot of digital, but it's not statewide. We've got a pretty good one.
But do you go out and buy, do you go out and buy display space on Google, or do you go out and buy that?
We work with third parties.
And again, that's what they're expecting us. It's not just our websites. They're, you know, where this is going to. They're looking for you to be able to place, okay, it's like if I do OTT through Marketron, I can be, you familiar with Pluto TV?
Yeah.
Any of it? Pluto is basically an app. And I can buy OTT on Pluto all day long, but the problem is the way that they set it up, you've got to buy like 5 counties under Marketron, and it's, to me it's wasted money. But I'm running into this more and more where people are moving into the area, and it's kind of like, oh, my money is gone there. I had a fight with the rep firm this week about Kroger, because Kroger will only do in major markets right now. That's all, only large markets. Our money in small markets that we used to get is now in OTT. I see it all the time on YouTube. That's a different agency for me. So, okay, like, okay.
One of the pratfalls we've seen in digital has been, like, it's almost we're behind the curve on it. And so you go to the big car dealers that are doing digital, and
They know more about it, way more about it than you do.
or if you go to somebody and you want to give them a digital package, and they're already spending, say, 10 grand with you, and they'll come back, oh, that sounds good. Tell you what, I'll do 8, and then put 2 on digital. So now you've taken
Just
2 out
$300.
of your pocket.
Yeah.
And so if the 8 works as well for them on air, and the 2 doesn't, then you know how they are. They're going to come back and go, yeah, we'll just spend 8 now since the 2 didn't work. So you're behind the computer. So that's
Well, I mean,
problem.
most of the car guys, I mean, do most of your people have agencies that are associated with those dealers?
We have some that are agencies and some that are direct.
Yeah. And
We found that, we had one that fairly large dealership that used one of the major automotive agencies that, and Joe's wife is a salesperson on it. Okay? Every time the agency would call and complain and look for freebies and look for reduced rates, we turn around and explain it to the owner of the dealership, and the owner of the dealership would say, the hell with the agency, we're still working with you guys, and at the end of the year, that agency will be gone. Okay? And which means that we automatically get an additional 15%.
It's important for us to know the GM and sales manager and people that are doing it. But now, as you've got companies that are beginning to get into tier 3, these companies that are, it's kind of like they own 15, 20 dealerships. Yeah, they don't.
That's where the problem, I mean, there's a couple of dealerships in our market that are part of these large conglomerates. And, you know, one in particular, when we go in to talk to the general manager, everything has to go to somebody in Orlando, Florida, who is in charge of marketing, and they're in the digital department, or, you know, they have no concept at all of what radio is.
That case I was talking about, we, one of my accounts, and they started during COVID, and in fact, we started doing remotes there early on, and the guy had a record year and a half, and he was giving the Heisman to the corporate people. No, let me do my thing, and he did, and had a record year. He got where he wanted to leave the business and did, and have a new guy is all about corporate, and he's right back to, well, we're going to do some things different. And, you know, like to do their own thing.
It's been amazing, and Bill, any of you that are around Atlanta, Cox does an incredible job in digital. They are incredible. I mean, they have a lot of, you'd be surprised how many accounts digitally they're handling that you have no idea that, I mean, we deal with, there's a credit union that we deal with, and they're expanding. Put Cox's in there, we can do the radio, and we can do that, but on the digital, they are so tight, and they know what they're doing. Any of you familiar with Town Square? Town Square has done a brilliant job of how they do digital. It's almost like a subscription. And they have 500 people in Charlotte that do nothing but digital. But it works with a local group of people, and they're getting ready to build a West Coast division. And they'll go in and they'll say, they'll help with SEO, they'll help build a website. Maybe a client doesn't have a website, maybe it's not an interactive website, they'll go through and it's kind of like, you know, hi, this is Bill, and he's gonna be the team, you know, with Sanders, and here's our team, and you're gonna be working with so-and-so. They literally will go through and build a website, they'll do this, they'll maintain it, they'll do all this, and it's like $300 a month, pretty low level, right? It's almost like a subscription. It's $300 a month forever. Because you don't think about canceling it. It's just like cable TV. Then they start upselling all these other things that you're going through. They use the radio as an add-on to be able to go through and build the reach on, but it's a brilliant model. And I see sometimes we get left behind on things like that because, A, we don't have access to it. I'd love to see GAB be able to do some form or fashion that put us in some kind of group.
You know how that's an advantage that some of the larger companies have, because they do have the ability to be able to bring in full-time people.
But Town Square, I will say this.
But there's also issues where in some of the companies, in some of the markets, where they have salespeople that have been there for a long time and doing real well, and they're told from now on, 20% of your business has to be digital.
It has to be digital.
And what happens is that you've got a client that's used to spending $1,000 a month, they'll continue spending that $1,000 a month, but 20% of it is going to go to digital. So
I know that when Cox went into Athens and they tried to do the forced digital, and it wasn't always received all that particularly well. As forced, you know, done that. But again, I go back to that Town Square model, and they tell you they're a digital first company. And it really is kind of a brilliant model because I'm just going to line you up on the subscription. I'm going to help you with this website. We're going to maintain it. We're going to do all of this. And they'll continue to sell the radio with it, but they lump all this stuff together.
You know, about 5 years ago, Cox, if you look at one of the business cards, it doesn't say radio, it says Cox Media.
Cox Media. And their sales meetings, they don't talk anything about radio.
No, they don't. It's one of their platforms.
Right.
It's just one of their platforms. And all of their salespeople, no matter where they go, we're Cox Media, we offer radio, and we want to talk to you about our digital.
And before the Apollo acquisition, it was more.
Yeah, well.
Before the Apollo acquisition, there was a lot more cooperation inside because it really was hard to define TV, print, and you realize how many print publications they do. They're in automotive because they own Manheim Auctions. They own what's the other Auto Trader. They own so much stuff that they are really entwined with most of your auto.
They've become very siloed in the last 4 months.
Yeah.
Very siloed.
Yeah.
That's one of the advantages of being in a small small market, we don't worry about a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'll go back to you though, is the disadvantage in us being in a small market like what we are, and Cox's expertise, Cox is in my area doing digital on stuff I can't do, because I don't have the expertise.
One of the things that Council does, and another little bit of market manager of us was, they have a phenomenal training program. This circles back, ties into some of the things we talked about earlier, where we teach the younger people in the business. That's how they're able to grow their young people into it. They bring in a phenomenal digital training program.
You're talking about Cox?
Town Square.
Town Square, that's all they do.
Absolutely.
Their whole focus is that they are digital first. And they are, that is probably the model, and you'll see, I think you'll see Bob Goodman and iHeart try to do that. But for us, you know, digital is gonna become, you're gonna see more and more radio dollars switch to digital. So how are we gonna adapt to that?
Well, so if our sweet spot is $500, $1,500 a month for radio package, I mean, how do you guys sell to the local car dealer? I mean, is it just straight up X number of banners for $300 a month? I mean, what is the package?
Well, again, on something like that, again, they take a look at, you know, it depends on, while we have on our websites, yeah, we'll do 82,000 to 140,000 weekly uniques, but that's chump change on our stuff. They expect to be out there. They expect, you know, they're expected to be on digital. And the problem is we have
sophisticated buyers. I'm talking about, you know, the dog grooming shop. I mean, they don't live that world.
We sell packaging impressions. We used to sell flat rate, you know, run the month.
Right.
And
we'll do a cost per thousand basis.
Yeah, we sell it based on, you know, we'll sell you 1 million impressions for X.
So that's
Over time,
Yeah.
whatever the time period might be. That's how we do it. And, you know, the thing is, we're able to offer that digital product along with our radio product. And we're doing probably about 1 million pages a week. So we've got the volume. I can clear 1 million impressions pretty quickly. If somebody comes in and buys our small package, which is 600,000, they're gone pretty quickly. So
in Brunswick, as Joe mentioned, as far as digital stuff goes, we're a little behind the curve on that, and it's almost been to the point where, you know, when we're selling the radio package, they want, you know, because they're not familiar with what the digital could bring them, it's almost like they wanted us to throw in to see how it goes or see if it helps them. Whereas,
yeah, but again, the digital to them does not mean what we do.
Correct.
It's the rest of the world. How are you going to put it out there? How are they going to be able to see it on that phone? You know, what are you doing to get it on there? That's what Town Square does.
well, I'm not going to be a Google guy. So I can't sell you an ad on Google, but I can sell you an ad on a website that is a locally used news source that is going to get you a response, because quite honestly, people in Topeka, Kansas don't give a damn about your Hayes Chevrolet. They don't care because they're not going to come there to buy it. So we're staying a local market. I mean, I get what you're saying, but we geofence our Google AdSense off of our site if they come into our territory in certain categories. So if one of our car dealers goes and buys a Google ad, it will not show up on our site.
Well, we don't sell to Google on our site, but what I will say to you is that, you know, YouTube TV has been a walled garden. I couldn't buy that unless you went through that. And I have a client that literally is a car guy. He's based in Chattanooga, and he was going through, and I said, well, okay, tell me about this, because this is digital. That's everything he does is digital. He's a big radio believer because he came from radio. But he was going down through, he says, well, yeah, I can buy. I said, I saw you on YouTube TV. He says, well, it's set up as a percentage. I can buy X percentage that goes to laptop. I can buy X percentage that goes to phone. I can buy X percentage that goes to this. And if they don't watch the whole thing, I don't pay for it. You know, there's a bailout. And these are fairly sophisticated people. this is actually a used car dealer.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, it opened my eyes, because I can't buy that through Marketron, but I can turn around and get this guy to buy it for me. And it wasn't 5 counties, it was X zip codes. So I think, how do we arm ourselves like that? How do we develop that level that we can do that for people? Because we don't. Somebody is. And Google is hiring people to go into small markets.
Is it a hill you're willing to die on? Is it something we can afford to do, or do we strengthen the product that we have? Because you can only go so far before you're out of business.
That was a question that Mark Levy and I had a conversation with. And he says, I think you have to focus on the things that you do well. Okay, we know how to do this, but if we don't learn how to adapt, do something else, somebody else is going to do it for us. That's my concern.
Well, and to a certain extent, and I said, apples and oranges maybe, but that's when we started our news website 20 years ago, 21 years ago. That was us moving into that realm, to be able to offer a separate product.
Yeah.
Now, it took 10 years of losing money, but it's paying off now, and it has for the past decade or so. But, that's where we are. We've also gotten into some publications. So, we know we can't do everything, but we try to do what we can afford to do and do it well and strengthen it. But I think from a radio standpoint, for us, because our heritage station is an AM, and it's got a big footprint, but looking at where the age groups, demos, and where they're listening, all my people who are on the older demo are right here on the AM. On the FM, they're like that. On the AM, very few on the younger demo. They're all so our question for us now is, how do we strengthen the FM side? What's going to happen to AM going forward? Is digital AM something that's just a pie in the sky? Is it ever going to happen?
Because I think all of us probably have an AM in the market, and you got a translator, and if the AM were to go off, nobody would ever know it.
Well, that's the way it is with our 1K. I'm not quite sure why we still have this station. I mean, all I do is pay power bill.
Yeah, right.
Well, the thing about it is, without the AM, you don't get the
Well, I
FM.
know.
Right. Well, thank y'all, this has been great. This has been good. We went 2 hours, and we can probably keep going. And we're going to do a deep dive in high school sports. That's always an interesting topic with that. So normally in this forum, we talk about it, and the room sort of gets excited about that. But we're going to do a deep dive. Nick's involved with that too. He's got some interesting perspectives from things that have happened with them over in Alabama. So we're going to do a lot about that at luncheon today. But thank you all. This has been great, and I think we can probably help each other out. I think we have helped each other.
Is the cyber maybe in here with Richard?
I'm not sure.
I think that's the last part.
Is it?
Yeah, but it's the one after lunch.
Okay, that maybe after lunch. Okay. Well, thank y'all so much. Appreciate you very much.